Life.
Wow, all that work, and now we are live. We are back. This is Ask the Oracles. Oh my God, it must be, what day is it? It is
If it's Monday, it's time for Ask
Ask
the
the Oracle.
Oracle.
Wow, wow, wow. Feels like it's been forever. Monty and Amy, how are you? I like your new location. It's a nice look. Uh,
Thank you. We're in Amy's studio, one section of it.
Because we couldn't get internet in our normal space.
Right.
But we're all going with the flow these days.
This place is like a barbershop, 3 computers, no waiting.
wow. How was your week? Any new book deals in the last week?
Sort of.
Well, yeah, we've been editing. I'm editing one book while he's editing another, and it's good. It keeps us focused and in the
Did I
moment.
misread that? You wrote a 160,000 word book that you're editing. Is that true?
Yeah. That's why it has to be edited.
That's what we're talking about today, creativity and what it takes to be prolific.
And
People are always saying we're prolific. You know why? Because we don't
do anything else. and you never see our feet. There's actually leg chains down. It's like being on a slave ship here. Not to get anyone upset.
No.
But we had sort of the miracle of the typos this week. That was kind of fun. We had an actual miracle take place between our editor at Red Feather and us. She sent back the manuscript and said, "There's words missing." And I've never.
In other words, the manuscript was at a very refined state, ready to go to galleys.
Yeah.
And she said, "I have some weird questions."
And those of you who know my Facebook page have seen it. The sentences were all about things that could easily be construed as being told to us by Zane, who passed away on the 13th.
Because we've been very sad. So we feel like, we really got a message directly from Zane because it was such a unexpected, weird thing that never happened before, to have complete missing sentences and fragments.
2 sentences in the death card. It was just amazing. And then it turns out this morning, our editor tells us that she hasn't told anyone, but her dog passed away.
I don't know if she wants you to.
Nobody knows who our editor is.
Oh, okay.
What? Any psychics? Turn off your whatever.
Anyhow, she felt there was a message for her too.
So these 2 scamp animals are out there. How do you get into a file? I can't even get my computer to work upstairs. And on the other side, you got these 2 animals taking words out of a file. It's pretty cool. It's cool.
Yeah, that's what it is when you're an oracle, right? You read the signs and symbols.
Right. I could have just as easily said, "Oh, these words are missing. I'll put them in." But that's our week. How was your week, Jeff?
My week was experimental. Last week was experimental. I did something innovative once again. I tried out using Twitter as a platform for an event gathering, and it worked out well. I did not know what to expect, and it gave me an enlightenment. But on top of that, I came up with yet another idea on how to apply NFTs. So I'm now even busier. That's why I have no links to share, because I'm processing how to make sense of all of this. So,
I had links.
Sorry?
You shed links. You have done so many different things that you just move ahead. There's like links in your wake.
This is what brings us to our theme for today, the way of creativity, which is a way of life where you have ideas and you pursue them and they make you grow as a person, they make you grow spiritually. And that's why we have our guest, Stephen Bright.
One of the most creative people we know.
Who's
Thank you.
As prolific as we are. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, how are
in
you?
the UK.
Good evening.
And you have a new book that I have right here called The Oracle Creator, which is so beautiful and so chock full of information.
Oh, wow.
Tell us about
Irene has it.
Oh, we're all matching.
Tell us about it, because we're happy to be a little part of it also.
Yeah, well, basically, I was speaking to the publishers at Liminal 11 for quite a few years, actually, before this came about. I made friends with them at one of the UK tarot conferences. And sometime down the track, they suggested to me, would you be interested in writing a book about how to create an oracle or a tarot deck? And I think what they initially was expecting was that I would go through the procedure that I might go through when I'm creating illustrations, or, in the same way that you might do, Amy. But then I realized that there was so much more to this book than just that. And the most important thing, I think, is when you're creating something, is the planning that happens sometimes before you even put pen to paper, or, you cut out a piece of collage, or, however you're going to go about it. So I really wanted to spend quite a lot of time kind of showing people how you get to that place beforehand, before you actually do anything really creative, with your hands, like drawing or painting or what have you. Then I kind of thought, if I'm going to do that, then we really need to know what happens after you created your article. Do you get it published? If so, how do you get it published? What is it that publishers are looking for? If you want to self-publish, how do you do that? Because so many people do this, but there doesn't seem to be any texts out there at the moment, or until this, that really go into depth about, how you actually do these things. How do you take it from an idea in your head to something on a piece of card? How do you then take that piece of card out there for other people? Or, for some people, it's just that they wanted to have a deck that they could use on their own. Not everybody wants to get it published. So the book really became something else.
Yes.
And to do that, there's so many parts of this process that I don't have experience of. So I've never done a Kickstarter. I've not self-published. So that was when I started leaning on all my friends like yourselves and saying, can you share this information with me, from your own experience? And they became little stand-alone interviews in the book.
Well, it's so well organized, and you do have the step-by-step. I mean, I must admit, when you mentioned it to us, I was a little skeptical, like, there's really that many people who want to design an oracle, but it's true. And you see so many new decks coming out, and new decks that are self-published, and many different themes. And I love the way you kind of really lead the person through the steps. And we get asked over the years, so many people ask us about publishing, right?
Yeah.
I'm always amazed that people don't listen to our advice.
Well,
do they really want to know about publishing? Because we tell them the truth, and we try to, but not in the whole book. So, I mean, now they can get your book and learn the whole thing.
And we don't know anything about self-publishing.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting to read that aspect. And we've never done a Kickstarter either. So it's actually a very valuable book for a lot of reasons. There's always been, in the tarot community, everybody would know this, they always sold a blank deck that was just 78 blank cards.
I think it was US Games.
Yeah,
right?
I think they did, because people have been making their own decks forever. Since Stuart Kaplan did that.
Well, just like you can make your own talking board or your own pendulum, it makes it very personal.
And we like to think that the creativity deck goes very well with your book.
I love these two together, even visually. Look at.
We're hoping to see them.
Hello.
Customers who bought this also bought this.
Nice recommendation engine. It's real. No AI needed here. Yes.
Yeah. Jeffrey's creating his own oracle too.
Entrepreneurial oracle deck. Yes.
There you go. Well, this is what everybody needs. And it's beyond creating your own deck. It's just all about, his book is about creativity.
I think so much of taking on a big project, which, doing a whole series of cards is a big project. It's a commitment to a relationship. Are you ready to commit to that? Because sometimes you have a little idea, oh, I would love to write a book, or I'd love to do this, but you really are saying what it's like. And we try to do that in our creativity oracle. Each step, has its challenges and takes you on a journey. And it is always comes out differently than you might have first conceived. I mean, that's the adventure.
Well, even this book did, and as I was writing it, I was kind of thinking, what else do people need to know? So then there's directories in there as well. So you can kind of see how symbols could be used in oracles, So I've got a directory in there of different ones. And then there's kind of how color can be used. So you've got all of that stuff in there at your disposal. But, not everybody wants to get their decks published. Some people, one of the parts in here is kind of looking at, why do people create oracles? And it's for, a whole load of different reasons. one lady needed an oracle because her eyesight was failing and she needed something that she could
Oh my God.
read properly.
Oh my God, that would sell though. I mean, that's a great idea.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't blame anyone. I mean, now that I'm accustomed to, different, 100 oracles coming out every day, that it's teaches you about life. It teaches you about who you know, it teaches you about yourself and what you know about other people. And, it's such an exciting adventure, really.
So it is exciting, actually.
I mean, we did it, started a long time ago, and that's why we kept coming up with new ideas, right? You want to delve in, find out where you're at now, where the universe is now, these touchstones, and they all work. We always say you can look at the clouds and get a message, for an answer for your question, but we like beautiful art, right?
And
I think, on top of that, I think what it also does is it kind of gives you some of the difficulties that are involved with creating and publishing as well, so almost that you don't need to. So there are a lot of hidden costs sometimes in Kickstarters, and it kind of shows people that, so they don't get involved and then end up losing a load of money.
Wow.
Wait, I didn't know that. You can lose money doing a Kickstarter?
well,
if you don't kind of
yes,
sort out all of your pennies, it could be that there could be some kind of charges that need to be paid, or somebody might pull out, all of these kind of things, which is then going to end up eating into your own bank balance. So it's about being thorough.
Yeah, Jeff wants to weigh in.
most successful Kickstarter campaigns happen because people advertise them, and that there's a promotion being done across social channels to drive people to the Kickstarter. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. Crowdfunding is great, but you have to either find the crowd or bring the crowd. And so, and unlike Indiegogo, Kickstarter, actually, you only get the money if the entire goal number is reached. Indiegogo lets you get it incrementally. So if you don't, and then you get different levels of visibility on Kickstarter's website, and for that matter, crowdfunding websites, if you meet certain minimum criteria in terms of commitments. So there's a reason why, and the formulas that people apply that, okay, I want to raise $300,000. I'm willing to commit $100,000 to marketing myself because I will get $300,000 if I do that. If you put zero in, you may raise your goal, but you may not. And so there's a lot that goes into, plus most Kickstarters require a 2 or 3 minute promotional video. Some people take that to a high level to create a very professional look and feel to it. So there's lots of hidden costs and upfront costs and time costs all associated with that. So there's, so you do want to get the Kickstarter right. And you want to put yourself in the best position possible to make sure your message is being heard, and that you're not, and people understand the intention and purpose behind what you're doing. So there is, and of course your own time, right? If you're going to spend 6 months planning a campaign that's going to be running for a certain period of time, if you value your time at all, there's all of that too that could go to waste if you don't orchestrate your Kickstarter properly. So there's a lot of that. So there's the money spent, the money not spent, but all your time. And so, that's what I've seen anyway. And so there's many reasons why you want to do it right.
Jeff, what we're talking about, creating your deck, a big project, this kind of parallels when you have to advise a startup company, right? Somebody has an idea. Do they really know all the steps involved to taking something to fruition, a manifestation?
Well, I'll tell you, yes, it's true. But I'll mention that my own personal success have come by not knowing the steps. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, in the sense that if I don't know the framework that's expected, I work and do things outside the lines, and people are not necessarily set up for that. So it's been highly disruptive and at the same time highly successful. That said, of course, there's a process of taking an idea and making it into a business, and what you need to go through to manifest that. And that is, whatever path people take on, it should be their path, and they need to follow the steps necessary to do it. And if there are ways to be successful, to be ignorant of that success, that's silly, right? So you want to be able to know what you can do. And when you're breaking new ground, it's like if you guys had to start an idea for a startup, if it feels right to you, and you could find other people who believe in it, then intuitively I say yes, it's a good idea. Let's do it, please make it happen. But how do you make it happen, and how do you bring it to light, and how do you then do what's needed in order for it to be successful? That's all part of that process. So whether I'm trying to manifest a deck for myself, or a new startup that's going to change the way the world sees agreements, maybe.
You've done that. I mean, you were an early adopter of Twitter. You were part of the formation, and I remember when you were doing 140 conferences.
Yeah, so there's that news, right? So you mentioned the 140. So I'm actually bringing it back to life.
Really? But it's about Twitter, I thought.
I actually am making the announcement this the next, I don't know, week or two, but I figured out a way to make NFTs and 140 work together to basically give gifts of giving to people, to honor the people who've previously attended, spoke, hosted, co-hosted, tweeted about it. And it's a really frothy way to create an ecosystem. So I figured I've been working on that for the past 10 days or so, Monty. So
Did you say frothy?
I like that.
Is that a tech word?
I think it's more like dealing with cappuccino, but it's the same thing.
Well, cappuccino is a tech word.
You've been very creative during this pandemic, Jeff. You got back to drawing and everything.
Yes.
I can't even count the books that we did.
We have a whole bunch for next year, too.
Stephen, I know you're working on something all the time. This keeps us sane, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm always thinking about the thing that comes after the thing that I'm doing at the time. That's, and I think especially when you're publishing.
This is a book everybody needs. I don't even say this about my own work.
That's right.
but this is a book that I think,
beautiful.
Yeah, it's like a why didn't I think of that kind of book? Congratulations.
We want everyone to be creative. I mean, that's how we solve the world's problems. That's how we solve our own problems. That's how we can help other people, right? When you're creative, you're open to spirit. I mean, creativity, we always say this, it's spirituality. That's why it's the way of creativity. It's a way of life. It's really following your passion. And I think, I don't know if you address this in the book, Stephen, I don't think you can set out, I see this in our own path to, is this going to make me money? It has to really be something that springs from your heart and first, then, it's nice if it can make money, or if you can shape it in a way that fits.
Yeah. I mean, it comes up in some of the interviews, in the different routes that people take. Through talking to US Games, there are some people, that they're not going to be set up for life, but people can make a good income from a successful tarot or oracle deck. And other ways that people can do it, there's a whole kind of on-demand services that you can get to print decks as well. So you can do it relatively cheaply. And then you can set your own costs for decks, so you can make a profit on it. So there are kind of some guidance in there. There's not really any guidance as how to make money doing it, but I think some ways of doing it are going to garner a little bit of a better financial reward. And I guess that's the problem really, because Kickstarter, you could make some money doing it, or more than other avenues, but then you have the high risks as well. You have to be a certain sort of person to do that.
I think I'm just talking as an artist, what the initial seed, comes from. It's like you have to create this thing. It's in you to be born, for you to nurture. It's not necessarily in you. The first seed is not necessarily about making money.
No, not at all. And
that's when we can make a living out of it, and a lot of magic happens that's unplanned, like Jeff was saying. You can learn your skills, you can learn the steps, but I think it does become a personal journey, where magic happens. I know in our lives, people have come in right when we needed it, right when we needed it to learn, of somebody helping us, or to learn what they had to teach us, even without looking for it, when you're on that path, the doors do open.
And I think part of that also is not to be afraid of that journey.
Yes.
Don't
been
be
the message. Yeah.
Yes.
right. Don't be afraid of your own creativity. Don't be afraid of where you end up going, because you're following where you will learn that it's where you're meant to be. So to commit to that vision that you have, the creativity that's inside of you, to manifest that and allow yourself to go there, and don't block yourself, because sometimes our biggest competitors is no one in the outside world. It's ourselves. It's that self-doubt. It's that fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we put ourselves in, because some people think, well, I can't do that. It's not me. How could I possibly be an artist? How could I possibly be a writer? How could I possibly do this? And so, well, things were going great until you threw your own doubt in the way. So to let go of that and to be fearless in that way, not to worry, and to embrace where you're going to go, that's a way of creativity that I like to help others see, because it's such a gift to have that idea to do something, and then it's just to find a way to connect your dots, right? It's like there are times when I tell people life is a series of connected dots. The truth is to figure out the order to connect them, and that depending upon the pattern you connect, it will determine what happens next. And so to be open to patterns that don't seem obvious, and allow yourself to flow through that, and not be anything but unbounded is how you lift through everything. So, when I look at creativity in business, it's I think every business in the world should do an Oracle deck, because they learn to actually identify key points for themselves they want to share as values for their employees, for their customers, and for their partners, and look at the keywords that drive a deck. It'd be really cool to see how companies see themselves and how relationships are being formed publicly, transparently, because what we're doing one-to-one or one-to-many, I do think that in a group community environment, similar types of decks metaphorically should be created, because that's how we can grow, and that's how we can really get to understand who we are and who we're communicating to and with.
Wow, the world of oracles.
We're going to be out of business pretty soon if that happens. So the next time
I think not. I think you get to be the galactic king and queen. It's all good.
I think, yeah, the whole process of affirming and visualizing, which is really what using an oracle and being an oracle is about. It's very important to make those visions concrete in the affirmations, when you see it written, when you say it to yourself. All of that is empowering.
That's everybody right into a reverie. I think that's why I see
throwing it back out.
Well, that's why I ask the oracles is an important thing, because we're all here to give each other a pep talk about stuff that we all know. When we used to ask questions, we used to get a lot of questions. We used to answer questions. We used to get a lot of questions about, I'm doing this, but I want to do that.
Should I do this or that? We said, do both.
We always said that, because when you're enmeshed in doing this and you want to do that, it requires effort to get out of doing this and go over and do a little bit of that, because you are enmeshed. You want to look at it as an addiction or whatever. It's always hard to change those kind of things. And one of the things that you need, like Jeff said, is you have to have the courage to go on. And like any good exercise, it's got to be something you want to do every day.
But also you have to be organized in a routine. Stephen, I'm sure you can weigh in on this. I have a very regular routine. I walk into my studio in the morning. I have my
She shoos the elves away from her work.
I have my coffee. I think about what I'm working on at the moment. I can go from one thing to the other. I mean, we're different personalities. Monty's a little more rigid. He has a lot of fixed planets. He has to focus on one thing, but you can multitask as well. But I think you have to have your space organized. You have to have your list organized of the to-do list, right, Stephen?
Yeah, kind of. I think one of the things I've worked out is that the times that are good for me to work and the times that are not good for me to work. And that's just something I've worked out over the years. I work quite well very early in the morning, and I work quite well late in the afternoon, but those places in between, not so well. And also to know when to walk away. And I'm sure, I don't know if Monty can relate to this. Sometimes I'll be writing and it'll be going really, really well. And then I just start writing gobbledygook, and I know I have to stop then. I have to kind of walk away and come back, because, you know, it's just knowing. I think you just kind of get that intuitive knowing when, you know, I can't force it a lot of the time. So, you know, in a sense, it's not like for me sitting down and I'm just going to write straight for 5 hours, because sometimes I just can't do that. So I might write for 1 or 2, and then I go away and do something else, you know, whatever that might be.
We all have our quirks, right?
Right.
Things that distract us, or, you know, things that you have to munch on, or, you know,
Got to have that crunch while you're writing.
or the lure of the social media.
If celery didn't exist, we'd have to invent celery.
But do you have somebody that, like Monty and I are each other's editor and each other's, you know, you have to have somebody that checks in on you or that you trust to give you feedback. We have, you know, another friend who is part of our little team, a friend Dan, you know, who's a Virgo critic. He always finds like the thread hanging off my tapestry before I show it to anyone else. You know, you have to have that go-to person who knows you so well and that really knows your work and is reliable to give you good feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends, really, not necessarily people in the same industry, but people who I will go to and just say, what do you think of that? And they'll either say, yeah, that's really good, or I'm not so sure about that. But yeah, I mean, I am kind of like a team of one, really, in the sense of everything that I do. I show my partner, obviously, and see what he thinks. But yeah, generally, sometimes I just find it helps me to just kind of walk away for an hour or 2 and then come back and look at it. Or after a night's sleep, come back and look at something the next day, and look at it with those fresh eyes, you know, especially visual stuff.
Well, I mean,
I love something and then hate it the next morning, you know.
I don't think I've ever hated it.
Amy's been an artist since she's 3 years old, so it's a different.
Look, it's hard work too. We have to take care of our bodies. I mean, we've been over artwork all day long. You know, you get stiff neck, you have to have massages. We have to incorporate a lot of wellness things into this too. These are big commitments and big projects.
For the follow-up to the Oracle Creators. The Oracle Creators exercise program.
Also, I mean, a big thing is when you invent an oracle, you have to use it, you have to play it, you have to make sure it works, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah,
It's an important stage.
I have a couple of things here actually that I just found in the cupboard before we came on, and this is just loads of little cardboard sheets here, you know, which I've just glued on pictures, and this is for an oracle that I've written the book for Anne Stokes, and when I was sent the images, you know, I had to work these out, you know, to make sure that they were going to work as an oracle, you know, to make sure that there was different kinds of meanings for different kinds of images. So I always have what I would call a dummy deck to work with. You know, here's another one. This one's for this one's coming up for Red Feather at some point.
They're great.
Great.
Wow.
A lot of books for them. I love working with Red Feather.
Yeah, they're great.
But you know, you need, when I'm writing the actual book, after I've completed the images, I always get to this stage where I print everything out and I start playing with it, you know, and if something doesn't seem like it's that it's right, you know, if something doesn't seem in tune, a card doesn't seem in tune, then I will go back and change it. You know, some of the titles in this had to change, or there are cards that like stuck out and they didn't read as fluidly. So it's like, well, you know, I need to change the title of that, or the image isn't right, or I need to add something else in. So I kind of had that process when I'm working with card decks of making sure, you know, testing them out and making sure that they're going to run smoothly when people use them.
You know, I think one thing that's apparent is that creative projects help to create you.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reciprocity. I mean,
Yes.
at this stage of our life, and I'm sure Jeffrey, it's the same with you. You can acknowledge how much of your present self has been created by the projects you got involved with.
Absolutely. I think well, first of all, I think there are multiple, each and every one of us is as a result of that
Yeah,
we change and things evolve, and at the same time things stay the same. And I'm still processing some other things that you guys said earlier. The enormity of putting together a manuscript to how to create Oracle deck, how to the creativity side of that. I think Stephen is brilliant, and I really do believe that it can be used literally as you've written it for. But I do think there's merit to actually, because I was listening to what I was saying as I was talking before, and I really do think that you could take that same body of work you have, and for any company that's looking to embrace creativity, because you see about 20 years ago, a lot of large corporations started innovation departments, companies that were old stodgy companies because the internet happened and they were being disrupted whether they liked it or not. So the smarter companies decided to start hiring people who would be internal disruptors, people that are not from their own industry, but people who'd come in from the left field and all of a sudden do something magical. And while it did create internal disruption, some companies did change, others failed because creativity was not at the core of the company, and now they need to embrace it more than ever before. And I think that if large corporations were to take what you have and internalize it and look for what values they have and create the equivalent of an Oracle deck for their own value system, as a means to teach them to recognize for themselves who they are and for the types of people they want to have in their future teams, the types of if they're a product company, the types of products they want to manifest. It could actually be a really a spiritually opening moment that could be literally a change factor in a big way. Because I think that while you may be focusing on people creating Oracle decks and tarots and other things, and you literally help them through that process, what you are giving people who are willing to listen is a blueprint to creativity and a blueprint to literally taking what they have and manifesting it in a way that's meaningful. So if you're someone who knows someone who's stuck in corporate culture, who wants to break it, wants to be effectively changed, I've been to large companies which are having retreats, and they want to have certain people come and talk and sort of like get them thinking outside the box. Teaching on a company retreat 100 top executives of the company how to be oracles or how to embrace their inner creativity would be a wonderful lesson for all, and would be actually an awe-inspiring experience for that. So I think there's a much larger market than
yeah.
and then when Monty and Amy were talking about all the books they've been writing during the pandemic, I was imagining them starring in a Netflix TV series about life of an oracle. The life of an
Life
oracle.
of an Oracle, cool.
Wow. Hey, Stephen, and this is
I just wanted to say one thing.
I'm so sorry.
No, I was thinking like for a corporation, say you had 50 people at the meeting, that they all could contribute a card or write the card. And then when you shuffle it, it's the whole company together,
Right.
This is how
working
Amy works. She doesn't wait.
That's called
She's already doing it.
It's brainstorming, right?
Hey, actually, Amy, you took the words right out of my mouth, because years ago I used to teach in schools, and I used to go to all different kind of age groups. And one of the things that I would do is I would get everybody in the class to make one card. And the card was going to be something maybe that they didn't feel that they could talk about, but they could do it visually, or it would be something about them that they were really proud of. And then at the end, we would kind of put all of the cards together, and we'd pull one out and we'd ask somebody else to look at it. And it wasn't so much as to do with card reading. I never said that it was about card reading or tarot or anything like that, but it was about, what do you think this person has experienced? How has this person used color or visuals here to express themselves? So, very much like what you said, but, for young people, I felt it was, it was quite, groundbreaking for them to be able to express themselves in a different way.
How beautiful.
Yeah, it's like oracles are really a Rorschach test.
Yes.
And when you're creating an oracle, you're creating your personal Rorschach test. And one thing I get going out of the spiritual into the business head, every publisher, since Stephen, you're with a publisher, they have what's called a special sales division. And the special sales division is the person that, like in our case, goes out and sold the Wild Goddess Oracle to TJ Maxx, and Home Goods.
But
And-
they have books of every subject, so how are they going to know what they all are? We've had the opportunity a few times to
go to
present.
sales conference. But what I'm trying to say is, maybe it's something to give Jeff's idea to the special salespeople and say, you can be, because what'll happen is they'll try and sell like 100 of your deck at a special discount, which we
To
unfortunately
a corporation.
to
you
a
mean.
corporation for their retreat, and then they can promote you as the person who comes to the retreat.
That's all, we need new ideas, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I hate it when people tell me what to do. I don't mean to do that.
No, but I think it's
What we
really
get excited about, right?
it's taking this magic and handing it to people who maybe wouldn't find it otherwise, so I think that's great too. I think there's a lot of benefit from spending time quietly in reflection. A lot of what I've done when I did it in schools was to use collage, so it kind of, everybody was the same, because we didn't have that, oh well, I can't draw, so I can't participate in this. It was like everybody can have a magazine here and they can rip some pages out completely intuitively, and they'll find their way to put it together. And I think when young people especially can see that magic coming together, that you put two images together and suddenly you have something completely different, it's great, and for adults too.
I think it's therapeutic. I mean, it's therapeutic to create the art, to create an oracle, especially because it has very particular messages, that feed our soul. But then therapists use, I remember years ago, we invented something called the alchemist, and it was like flip messages. You threw the dice and you'd get fire, air, water, and earth. So when we went around to promote it in the old days, when you went around and promoted books, so many therapists told us that they used it. I would say more than any other category, because it would open up a dialogue with their client, that helped them express or react to the cards. And basically that's what we do when we pick cards and look at the answer it offers us. What does it trigger? What does it bring out in you that you maybe didn't articulate in another way?
And I think as well, sometimes, if you've been through a difficult experience, sometimes it's a way of taking that experience and naming it and taking it out of yourself and putting it onto a piece of paper. It's quite therapeutic too, to kind of say, this, we're thinking of tarot, this is my 9 of Swords experience, this is my 10 of Swords experience. It's here now, it's no longer inside eating away at me, it's there. And then that can be helpful for somebody else as well. Somebody else who's possibly having that experience to see that, or to share that, to talk with somebody about it, especially something you can do in those kind of settings, group settings.
Hey, does anybody have any questions that they want to put in the chat about making an oracle?
Or being
One question said about, does the book relate to tarot as well? And yes, it does.
Yes.
There's a lot of tarot decks in here, and people who have created tarot decks.
Well, another thing is, like, the more you use an oracle or the more you do the tarot, you learn what it means, on and on and on. I mean, the more readings you do, and the questions that are asked, and you see how it works for this particular question or that particular, so it makes you grow and grow and grow and keep growing. I mean, to me, that's the most beautiful aspect of it.
It rewires your brain. The synapses get rewired when you keep sending your brain out to make free associations with meanings, whether it's astrology or tarot or
Psychic,
oracle or
yeah.
psych. You're they're always talking, oh, we only use 10% of our brain. Why? Because we don't admit the other 90% can do what we know it can do. And when you do oracles, you rewire your synapses and you take advantage of the whole brain.
But then you just start to accept that it works,
Yeah.
People say, how does it work? It just works.
Yeah, like how your car works, really, shut up. Just get in your car and drive.
Here's a question. Susan asked, what are the standard number of cards and important elements in a deck?
Whatever you want, really, but if you're doing a tarot, 78 is the number.
And important elements?
What is an important element? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it says important elements. And maybe I guess in tarot it's tarot, but if you're doing an oracle deck,
Well,
what
you
are
want it to be complete. Like when we did the creativity oracle, it had 80 cards because we had two concepts that we couldn't squeeze into the other ones. So it's like, okay, printer's going to have to figure out how to set up the sheet to cut 80 cards, and you know you do get into that stuff if you're going to manufacture.
And Steven, do you have any suggestions? Are there a certain number of cards in your decks?
I think, you know, when I was doing this one here, this one for Anne Stokes, I needed to, I think you have to think about what the deck is going to be used for. And if it's going to be used for questions that relate to all areas of life, then there's going to need to be a certain amount of cards. So yeah, you could have an oracle with 20 cards in it, but will it be enough? Will the same cards keep repeating themselves over and over again? You know, if you've got a card for this, do you actually need a card for that as well? Or do you have too many cards that are focused on romance and not your career perhaps, or your spirituality? So you need to really kind of think what needs to be in there, and then you can kind of work out how many cards, I would say.
I think, I mean, just as an artist, you can't overthink it ahead of time. You know, like when you know a work of art is done, it's done. You don't like fret, or, you know, you have to really trust yourself, you know, and the same with, you know, how many cards it's going to have, because ours vary. We've done 36 card decks, we've done 78 card decks, 48 card decks. It's like, you know, when it's right, you know, when it's finished, you know, when you've included everything.
Well, it's easy when you do a tarot, or when I first did karma cards. Thank you, Michelle Marie. If I say karma cards, I have to send
Michelle
you your royalty. Thank you. When I did karma cards, it was easy because I had
planet signs
and houses, and I had to come up with two more planets. So I used the north node and the south node, which is the basic yes and no, or red light, green light. Thank you, Susan.
You start building.
You get your royalty too.
I'll just say you start building the framework around the theme. We've done very specific themes, like a breathing deck. We've done a healing deck, and you know, we want to include everything that we knew about that subject. So you'd make a list. I worked that way when I did the Enchanted Tarot. We made keywords before I started all the tapestries. So we made little pieces of paper, frustration, joy, and that would trigger the imagery for me one at a time. But everyone's got their own process and way of working that you have to develop. It's fun too, right?
You can work it out on like playing cards as well. You can buy cheap little packs of playing cards and write titles on them, play with them, you know, look at them, see, you know, what's missing from here. I mean, obviously you can have a deck as big as you want, but I mean, you don't want to be carrying it around in a backpack. You know, you've got to be able to be
the hand truck deck comes with a hand truck.
Any other questions? Please feel free to put them in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually the essence of Ask the Oracles.
Okay, Joyce wants to know: do you need an electrician to rewire your synapses, or just an oracle deck?
I love it. Well, you know, it really.
Well, acupuncture, that does it.
When I did karma cards, I did not have a computer. We're talking about 1986, 1985.
When dinosaurs ruled the earth.
Right, and you know, trying to stay away from the dinosaur big poops all over the place. I was able to do it in my head, and that definitely rewired my synapses.
He had file cards handwritten with all the messages on it, and that's what we sold it on.
Yeah, and
I mean, it was really raw.
But I tried it out. I was working I was in charge of security for the movie of A Chorus Line with Sir Richard Attenborough directing, and
1985.
1985, and I had them on file cards. And every day I would play them with the actors, or God help me, I played them with the Teamsters. And
well, you played them with the dancers.
That's true too.
Because when I walked in there were like all these beautiful dancers around Monty asking questions, but that's how we worked it out, you know?
Yes, and obviously it worked.
Right.
I'm actually still friends with a few of those dancers.
That's
which
true.
Is really
they come
nice.
to you for readings.
Yeah, one lives in Berlin, one lives in Singapore, one lives in Germany. Well, Berlin and Germany.
I think just playing it with a big variety of people, you know, initially you get the diversity of questions and responses, you know, that really help you hone and polish what you're working on.
Right. And you gotta accept rejection. I mean, that's the one, if
We
you're
say
gonna,
that in the creative, our 80 concepts also include rejection and restart and throw away and let go and all those things.
and go in the bathroom and vomit. That's one of the cards that didn't work.
Right.
Oh, that's the original karma cards. Jesus.
Oh, Michelle,
That's like a
she's so
first
devoted to your
edition.
karma card.
Yeah, that's from, because
Well,
at
the
first,
other thing is you don't know when you send some, we were lucky to meet Michelle Marie, over Instagram or the internet, but when you send your deck out in the world, you don't know how it's going to affect someone's life or how they're going to use it and what a personal, I
yes,
mean, as an artist, when I initially, when I was young, I thought, maybe a gallery would discover me or, promote my work. When I found doing oracles as a way of expressing my art and giving it to the world, I mean, it opened up amazing things. I mean, I found that was my way, the
Yeah.
way of the oracle, right?
and recently we did Enchanted Worlds with Red Feather. They did an amazing job, and that's our museum. That's the museum of Amy's work, and we have friends who are famous artists, but more people know who Amy is than know who they are because of doing oracles.
Well,
So
you can't be elitist. I mean, the art world is a very elite kind of small world, really, but publishing, it's fantastic. It's a way to really reach so many more people.
yeah, I mean, we love seeing you doing it, Stephen, because you're doing it.
We want somebody to work as hard as we do.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think that the point of this book really is I say in it, everybody has an oracle or a deck within them, and the idea is that anybody can do this, and it's to show you how many different ways that you can, and you don't have to do anything in a you don't have to follow the way that everybody else has done it. You can carve out your own way, your own oracle. So I would encourage anybody before that doubt sets in to kind of consider, what's your strength? How might I do this if I'm not the best drawer in the world? How might I do it if I'm not the best drawer in the world and I'm going to still draw? Because people do. People try, all different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
Well, do you talk about collaboration in the book? Because obviously that's what we've done it.
Yeah.
You collaborate with other people too.
I do. I was thinking about that when you mentioned earlier about, consulting with people in a team. At the moment, I'm working with an artist called Alejandro Rozan. I think that's how you pronounce his name. So we're going back and forward. He sends me the pictures and then I go away and I write things about the pictures and I say to him, what's this symbolism? What does this mean? And then I kind of use it to interpret it for readers. The same when I worked with Tony Sathery on Rainbow Kipper. She was the Kipper expert and I was the novice to some extent, but the artist. So I would send her pictures and she would say, maybe that bit's not so right. That person, that child doesn't quite look how I want them to, or they're not looking in the right direction. So then I would take that on, and then we would go back and forth like that, and she would do the same, the writing. So as much as I am a team of one, there are times when I work with other people and I can, Alejandro and I are now kind of like talking every day, and he's sending me images and I'm telling him what I think and sending him the writing to make sure that it's all in harmony, which I guess is very much how you two work.
Yes, it's very intimate, that kind of work. And also working with a team at a publisher is very collaborative.
Yeah.
Because, they have their perspective and their input, as far as covers go, as far as size of the cards, all of that stuff. So sometimes you have to be compromising.
We live out here in the Hamptons, which we met a lot of artists, and a lot of them had issues with, oh my God, I don't want to be commercial. And to us, commercial is never a dirty word. Commercial means getting your work into the homes and lives of other people. So, and it's got to be good.
That's right. Well, we have some funny moments, like in one of our systems, I forget why, but it had to have swamp in it, as a negative card. I said, I'm not going to illustrate a swamp.
It turned out to be one of Amy's best, and like the
But
sandstorm.
I relented because Monty was right.
Oh, well, sometimes. But you got to keep going. You got to do it. You can't let people's stuff get in your way. I mean, Jeffrey, you've overcome I mean, when you're trying to make the future and cook the future, like there's always people going to say that's not going to taste good.
Right. So you learn to ignore, right? And you learn to, it's not that not everybody wants you to shine either. So when I find something that I strongly believe in, I do it no matter what, or at least I push. Because I learned not to try. I learned to drop the word try, and I truly take it in a true George Lucas kind of way. Either I do something or I don't do something,
Right.
and I think that's just as important as doing something. That if you know you're not going to do it, don't kid yourself. Don't waste your time
Mm.
apologizing to yourself or to everyone else. It's not going to happen. Acknowledge and move on. And so when I take something on to do, particularly creative, I will sit there and push through to make it happen, and then push through and do it again or do it again until I absolutely feel comfortable. And if you compromise on your work, the only one who knows it is you. And there are times when, and it's not that things can't be good enough, but at the same time, if I can do better, I will do better, and I will come forward with the best version of what I have. It's just when I curate a conference, I'm always compromising in terms of the flow, but ultimately on the day of the event, I know it's the best possible event I could put together at that moment in time, and I accept that. And it's something very personal because it's a reflection of how things flow. And so when you're drawing, right, when we're creating art, when to stop. And so yeah, so Monty, when I'm seeing new ideas, I become, my biggest impasse is me. I once I get through it, I could then make it happen. The no's and the rejections, I mean, clearly, if I'm really off base, I might listen. I've learned to listen because I don't always get it right. But Lawrence disagrees.
Well, I think she's giving you the 2-minute warning.
I know. But
You have
anyway,
to listen to Lauren. Lauren's a great collaborator.
I'm just saying that with innovation, we can get ahead of ourselves too. And I look, ideas that I had 15 and 20 years ago, my timing was wrong, but some of those ideas are ready now. So it's when we work with the future, Monty, it's timing more than anything else. It's not the value of the idea; it's just when is it ready and what timeline it's for.
Well, we feel like we've contributed, Stephen. I hope this doesn't sound too egotistical, but we feel like we've contributed. Like if we can do it, anyone can do it. Kind of feeling for people doing the oracles, because Amy and I have been doing this for quite some time, and we've made a living doing it. And we're delighted to see everybody who's doing it too.
Yeah, it can only be a good thing.
Right. And
I
thanks
think
to your
the
book,
a lot
it's
of
going to be an even bigger thing. There's going to be even more people doing oracles.
But I think the last thing to say as well is, it's as much as we're talking about these visual things, and it's great if we have a wonderful end piece. It's not all about that. It's about how you learn and you grow as you're creating these things. So it's not just about that, that end result, that end card. It's about what you went through to get there, what came out of you, and why you did it in the first place. Some people use it as a way to work with their grief or
Sure.
Yeah, we're doing that right now.
Yes, I think it's an ongoing process, every single step of it that you can reflect on and explore and discover more.
Keep up the work.
Stephen, what's the best way for someone to follow up with you if they like to learn more about the work you do on a regular basis?
You can find me on my website, which is stephenbright.org.uk, or you can find me on Instagram. I'm Stephen Bright UK on Instagram. Stephen Bright UK on Instagram without any kind of extra letters or hyphens from the scammers, So, yeah, they're probably the easiest ways. If you go to my website, you can find ways to contact me on there through email.
Well, there's
Great.
an idea for another book. How to scam.
Now. Hey, okay,
The
we're
scammers oracle.
at the end of the show. Just give Monty and Amy last words.
Just thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you so much, Stephen. It's always a pleasure.
And we know you're all oracles yourselves. And a lot of times here we're preaching to the choir, but I think we all need the support of each other because there are a lot of non-oracles out there too.
Yeah, we're cheerleaders.
Right.
Stephen,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. Thanks for being part of the
you.
show today. Wish
Thank
you
you so
continued
much.
success with all your work. And if it's Mondays, it's time for.
Ask the oracles. Thanks,
Thank you.
Lauren. Thanks,
Thank
Harry.
you, everyone. Thank
Thanks,
you, Lauren.
Annette.
Thank you,
everybody.
Harry. Thank you, everyone.
Recording stopped.
Yay.
One of our